Hello. So it is Christmas shopping season. It is the shopping season. I think there's a little bit of Hanukkah left too. I think Hanukkah might actually be over. Kwanzaa, all sorts of the holiday shopping season. What better time of the year there could be to market your new book or a book that you've already written? Um, the studies show that maybe not so much. So anyway, I just blew that cold open. That was terrible. I should practice stuff before I go live. So anyway, my name is Cody C. Engdahl. I am a independent author. I have published 4 novels now. My 5th novel is about to come out. We're shooting for February 4th, and I got 2 books that are nonfiction works. In fact, I would recommend, if you are an author, or you're looking to become one, my book on how to write, publish, and market your novel that's on Amazon. If you go into the link below, it will take you. It'll take you to my author page on Amazon, and everything's available there. Of course, if you want signed copies of my novels, I keep those around so I can send them to you. Or if you live in Middle Tennessee, I could even arrange to meet you somewhere. So anyway, let's get to the topic at hand. Yes, we're starting at a different time than usual. Usually, I do this live stream around 7 o'clock on Sundays. I always find though that's kind of a tough time for me because really, I am an early morning person. Given left to my own devices, I typically wake up around, I don't know, about 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier. I mean, if it's still the 3 o'clock hour, I will force myself to go back to bed, or at least I'll try to. But after 4 o'clock, if I wake up, I'm like, screw it, I'm up. And that's really the best time of the day for me to do things like write. I like having that time alone before distractions start, before the traffic starts outside my window. I mean, it's not too bad, but before the emails, phone calls, all that kind of stuff like that. It's really nice, quiet time, and my brain's very fresh. So anyway, typically I do this at the end of Sunday when I've done everything else I want to do. But this is an important thing. I want to build this channel. So please, while I'm saying this, please like this video, subscribe to it. Subscription doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't obligate you to watch the videos. It just lets you know that when you get onto YouTube, which is where you're probably watching this, that I have posted another video. And I try to do it every Sunday. I'm not like committing to a schedule. And like, for example, you're used to seeing this. If you've watched this, normally you're used to seeing it around 7 o'clock or sometime after that. I do want to do it earlier when I'm still kind of fresh and I'm not worn down by that time, by 7 o'clock on Sundays. And also I don't know, maybe I'll have more opportunity to bring other people on who might be available at this time. So usually my schedule is that on Saturday evening, Laura comes over and I make dinner and she stays the night. And then I make her breakfast. Usually we have breakfast in bed. I make her eggs. And she usually leaves right around noon. So I figured, you know what, today there's really no reason. I mean, I got a lot to do, but I might as well do this first. So maybe that's what I'll do. I don't know. Next week, no promises. It's going to be Christmas Eve. It really depends on how Laura and I work out the weekend. I think we decided that the weekend is going to be the same, and she usually goes home or does her thing on Sunday afternoon, and then I don't see her until Wednesday. But we're going to spend Christmas Eve together and Christmas Day. But I think what we're going to do is she'll probably leave around noon as usual, and then I'll just go over her house that evening and for dinner. So there could be a Christmas Eve live cast, and we'll have to figure out what we're going to do. And even today, because I try to do something, and I try to have something topical. I mean, a lot of this is just me talking about what's going on with my writing and my publishing, and but I try to be topical. To put something in the title that might entice you to click onto this video and spend some time with me. And by the way, if you ever want to come on my show, especially if you're an author and you want to talk about your books, I do not have a big audience, but I'm working on that. I would love to have you on, and we can talk about your latest books, or just where you are in your process, or how you do things, or your opinion about how you market or whatever. So let's get on to the. I've already blown 5 minutes of this rambling, but I think the format is, just from watching other YouTubers, is cold open, a little bit of business, and then get to the business. So the business is um, uh, marketing and publishing your book during the Christmas season or holiday season, whatever holiday you particularly. And the thing is, the truth is that all holidays have basically a solstice holiday, whether it's Christmas, which is basically the old pagan Yuletide, or this Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Saturn, part of the Christmas traditions come from the Roman Empire with a Saturnalia. It's mostly all these, of course, the Christians, believe it's the birth of Jesus Christ, which I have totally supportive of that. And but all of these are, it's the end of the solar year, meaning the solstice. And of course, the calendars that the old ancients had, that day kind of fell, moved around. So anyway, I'm already getting myself in trouble. Please don't cancel me. So let's get on with it. So I, like a lot of people, thought that this would be a great time to launch a book, because everybody's buying presents. This is the time to really get out there and that you can make a lot of sales. And I'll tell you my own personal experience. Last year, I launched my book, Mexico, My Love, and I had the launch date of the day after Thanksgiving. And the idea behind that was that, okay, well, I'm going to get some of that. I'll have it out in time for the holiday season so people can buy as Christmas presents. Why not? That sounds great. People are more likely to buy things during that time. Well, I did a pre-sale, and I did well, or pre-order. I think I did about a month worth of pre-order, and I had beaten the previous book's record. So I definitely did better on pre-orders throughout. I think we had pre-orders starting I think it was about a month, starting at the end of October all the way through the day after Thanksgiving. And then the book came out, of course, all those pre-orders. And what do we mean by pre-order is it's different from pre-sale, because when you do pre-order on Amazon doesn't take that money until you've delivered the book. So people are just pledging to buy the book, and it happens quite automatically once they do. So, for example, I will have a pre-order coming up for my next book, and what happens is you'll pre-order it. It'll take your information, but it won't take your money. It just knows that money's there. And then what happens is the day the book comes out, it automatically sends you the book, and it automatically takes the money, unless you cancel your pre-order, or God forbid the author, not me, because I will never do this, but the author fails to deliver the book on time. That could be a problem too. So don't screw around those pre-orders, man. You better make sure. I mean, personally, my rule is I don't set up a pre-order until the book is done, and not only just done, but through its first round of editing. That means my editing, and then it's off to Laura. Once I hand it off to Laura, I'm pretty close to I'm pretty close to publishing, so I know that I can make that date. So, but anyway, this is what I found. So my pre-orders did well. Let's say it did better than last time. And then the book came out, and the first couple of days were fantastic. Best launch yet. And but all those people who bought right away were not new people. They were people who were following. They were friends, they were family, and they were also people who have read the other books, who like my stuff, who follow my author page on Amazon, and have been reading the series, and we're looking forward to reading the new book. But then the bottom fell out, and my sales just flatlined after like the first week that it came out. and almost nothing for the next several days or the next several weeks, all the way up until Christmas. And I was really worried. One of the things was this is the first book that wasn't American Civil War, and so I thought, hey, maybe it's because the genre is a little different. It's no longer American Civil War. It's a Mexican American War, or it's more than just that, to tell you the truth. But so I got a little scared. So the day after Christmas, I decided to start doing Facebook ads, or Meta, because it's on Facebook and Instagram, and put some money behind it. And a miracle happened. All of a sudden, I was getting all sorts of sales, and then I ended up having like a lot. I ended up having my best year ever in royalties. I will say roughly, I think I made 3 times, I tripled my royalties in 2023 from 2022. So it was an excellent year for me. And the interesting thing is, it wasn't all because everybody was buying the new book. It was because the new book came out and people were discovering it, and they were going back and they were buying the other books in the series. And so that is really a strong thing about writing series is if you got a good series and you got a good first book, that will pay dividends, because people will buy the first book and they'll like it. And it's really, I'm very lucky. I mean, I guess part of it, I'd like to say, is a little bit of skill that I wrote a good first book. But you got to make sure, if you're going to write a series, which I highly recommend, because it's a good way of building and making more and more revenue from a series that people want to read. You got to make sure that first book is good, and that people are going to want to come back and read the next one. That's absolutely quintessential to success there. And if your first book isn't good, either fix it or start a new series. Honestly, if you're finding that no one's reading book 2 and book 3, you might need to ditch, either fix book 1, either it itself, or maybe just the marketing, a new blurb, a new title, a new cover can do a lot of good. But anyway, I was very perturbed by, is that a word? I can write words, I can't say them. Perturbed? I was disturbed. How about that? Or I was curious, like, why was it? I thought people would buy books in the Christmas season. And it might have been David Chisholm. There's a lot of people who, there's a weird path that some people do, where they start as authors and then they get more into the helping authors industry than the actual being an author. I think David Chisholm's one of those guys. And so is Brian Cohen. There's also David Gagrin, who all these guys I follow because they have good advice, and they got paid courses too, which I can't afford to take, but they do offer a lot of free stuff as well that you can follow. And I recommend all 3 of them. They're good guys. But whoever the message came from, it makes, I think it was David Chisholm though, is he said, people typically don't buy books for other people as Christmas presents. And if they do, they buy books from really well-known. They buy like J.K. Rowling's books and Stephen King books. They don't necessarily buy Cody Engdahl books. I mean, to be honest, there are some people who bought last year, and actually I think even this year too, at some of the shows, bought my books to give as Christmas presents. That does happen. It just doesn't happen at the scale that you think it would happen or that you would like it to happen. And so not only that, but people do a lot less reading during the Christmas season because it's so busy. You have, first of all, you just have your own chaos you have to deal with. You have all the Christmas shopping you need to do. You have all the scheduling of, seeing relatives and having visitors and parties and all that kind of stuff. And not only that, but a lot of businesses are ending their year. And so there's a lot of end of year activity at work. So there's a lot, there's a lot of stress. It's probably the hardest time for anybody to find some time to sit down and read. So people aren't really reading. But the miracle is, or the good news in all this, is that the reading starts the day after and the book buying starts the day after, because now all of a sudden it's the day after Christmas and it's like, wow, the week between Christmas and New Year's is usually dead, and there's not a lot. All of a sudden, like the floor dropped out. Like all of a sudden you got all this time and not a lot you need to do. And so this is a good time for you to pick up a book and start reading. And not only that, but a lot of people get Amazon gift cards. And so as an author selling on Amazon, man, you want to get in on some of that money. The other thing is with the new year, a lot of people, because we all agree reading is a good thing. It's a good exercise for the mind. It's much more active mentally than, like, say, watching television or watching a movie, because, and I think this is really interesting. I feel like the relationship between an author and a reader is a creative partnership, because as an author, I am merely suggesting what's happening, with my writing and explaining, but it's the reader who is reconstructing this in their minds and giving faces and seeing the places and smelling the scents and hearing the sounds and experiencing. So really, it is a creative partnership that you're having with your reader, which I think is really fascinating. And it's one of the reasons why, as an author, I make damn sure that I'm always reading other people's novels. And I started listening to them on audiobooks too, because I do a lot of driving in my side work, and it's a really great place to listen to novels. And I always felt that was kind of cheating. But the one thing I did, the benefit I really did learn from it is, when you're hearing a novel read out loud, you're getting to hear the rhythm and the flow of the sentences, the sentence structures. And, a lot of times, even with your own work, you may not read it out loud, so you don't hear how it works and flows. And so I think getting that into your head and hearing how other people write will affect your own writing and make you a better writer. I just read or listened to Anne Rice's The Body Thief, and I got to say, Anne Rice, I had to go back and add her to one of my influences on Goodreads, because I loved Anne Rice. Now, I read Anne Rice like 30 years ago, just before I joined the Army, or maybe while I was in the Army. I can't remember, but I read Interview with a Vampire, loved it. Then The Vampire Lestat, it was even better. The Queen of the Dam was good. I didn't think it was as good as the first two. And then I got a copy of The Queen of the Dam that could not get it. And I'm sorry, The Body Thief, and just couldn't get started with it. And I think I wasn't that interested because it completely takes place in modern time, and it's also first person. And I don't really care for first person narratives. Some of my favorite books were, and it can be done very well, but I'm not really a big fan of it. But I will say, listening to The Body Thief really made me realize how much I love Anne Rice, how much I love her writing, how much I love her mind, and how much she has affected the way that I write and the way that I think. Even 30 years after the last time I read one of her books, I can see her influence in me. So I'm very grateful for her. And then I'm reading Ken Follett, or listening to Ken Follett's newest book called, what's it called? The Armor of Light. And I gotta say, I started listening to it. I'm like, man, this sounds just like Pillars of the Earth, but just at a different, time frame. Well, I looked it up, and sure enough, it's actually book 5. It's part of that series. So I didn't know this. I've read the first part. I've read part one of Pillars of the Earth. I need to go back to it, but it's actually called the Kingsbridge series. And Kingsbridge is a town, I believe it's in Cornwall. It's that southwestern peninsula of England that I believe at one point was Cornwall. And Kingsbridge is, I believe, it's a town that is deeper up an estuary. So like I think there's a port city, and I can't remember the name of that city there, but there's a port city there. But then if you go further up the river, up the delta, you'll get to Kingsbridge. And I guess all these novels, The Pillars of the Earth, A World Without End, I think there's a third one, and there's a prequel. But each one of these books is about 50 years of time in this place. So the series is about the place, and I guess there might be some relationship over the generations and the centuries, because I believe Pillars of the Earth takes place in the 1200s. But this one, the Armor of Light, is like the end of the 18th century and the early 19th century. So we're talking right around the times of the Napoleonic Wars and the Industrial Revolution. And it's a great book. It's kind of like they're kind of like soap operas. It's kind of like there's a mix of, well, it's like very bad things happening to helpless people and very cruel aristocracy. That's kind of what all is, as far as I've read, all these books seem to be about. Cruel aristocracy, desperate, poor people with bad things happening to them, and then people somewhere in the middle trying to make things better for everybody. But it's really good. It's just kind of like a soap opera. There's all these different like who's the main character? I guess the town, because there's all these different characters interweaving. I mean, there's one character, Sal, who seems to be kind of the focal, like all the other characters kind of revolve around her. But yet you are following all these different storylines that interweave, and it's really good. And I've become quite, when you get into a book where you get excited about listening to it or reading it, I'm very much. And Ken Follett, and I think that's how you say his name. I want to say Follett, but I think it's Follett, is certainly considered one of the great masters, and someone I can aspire to be. It's funny though. I like his voice. I like his writing voice, but I won't write like him. We're a little different. I like that Ken has very brief sentence structure and very straightforward writing. What I thought was very interesting is that he puts all his dialogue tags in the beginning of the sentence. So he'll go, he said, well, I'm not quite sure. We need to look into that further. She said, okay, let's look into it tomorrow. Instead of him saying, I'm not quite sure, we should look into that further, he said, okay, let's look into it tomorrow, she said. So I typically there's no rule. I heard someone say, I always put your dialogue tags at the end of the sentence. I don't believe in rules. Or I think there's more like guidelines. And that's typically how I do because it sounds better to me. And a lot of times, if I do put like the dialogue tag, it's not he said, quote, blah, 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 blah. It's usually like, he burst onto the deck and shouted, and then I don't know. But anyway, it's interesting to hear other people's voice, their writing voices and their narrative voices. And Ken Follett has got a very particular one that I'm enjoying listening to. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Okay, so let's do some business here. So I am running an ad, or I'm running a special right now in the UK, where Ken Follett is from. Mexico, My Love is only 99 cents for the digital version, or I'm sorry, 99 pence in the UK, all the way through. Let me make sure I'm not lying to you guys. All the way through next Friday. Oh, I got some messages here. Oh my God, it's so delightfully cute. I pray that is okay. It's Laura. I will try to decipher her message. Yeah, all the way through Friday. So if you live in the United Kingdom, which I believe is Scotland, England, Wales, Cornwall, which is, I think, it's interesting to me because they're okay. I mean, we're pretty. I'll say this: Americans are pretty stupid, myself included, when it comes to geography. But the United Kingdom is pretty complicated too, as far as what's what. Like, what is England, and what is Britain, and what is Great Britain, and what is the United Kingdom, and what are the British Isles? And what's even further complicated is that my understanding is the United Kingdom are the kingdoms of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And I believe the island of Man is also considered its own separate kingdom within the United Kingdoms. But then England itself is a combination of conquered kingdoms that have been brought together into a England. So with different, I mean slight, but different nationalities within the Kingdom of England. So, for example, there's Cornwall, and the Cornish people. If you're an American, you probably heard of Cornish hens, which is little baby hens. But Cornish people, I believe, are Britons as opposed to Anglo-Saxons. And Britons are the people that came in like 700 BC. And my understanding, the Celts, the Celtics, which my understanding is those people originated out of what is now Austria today. And they spread out all the way from Turkey and Greece all the way up into the British Isles and the Galatia of Spain. They're the Gauls of France. And so Cornwall, the Cornish, the Welsh, the Scots are all, the Irish are all descendants of these people. And so and then the Anglo-Saxons came from what we call Jutland, which is like the Denmark, and I guess now it's Germany. But Holstein, Schleswig, duchies there, and that came later. Those guys started coming over, I think, about 700. Oh no, I'm sorry. The Anglo-Saxon invasion or migration happens, I think, like after the withdrawal of the Roman legions from Britain, about 400 AD. So, like, there's an Aboriginal people that lived in the British Isles. Then the Celtics came over at about 700 BC. And those are the people who are like true ethnically Irish, Welsh, Scottish, Cornish, maybe Kentish too. I'm not quite sure. Then comes the Anglo-Saxons. Well, no, then comes the Romans, right? And who Romanized Britain, and they come around shortly after. Well, Julius Caesar stepped foot in Britain. He didn't do a whole lot of conquering, or at least they didn't stay. But it's not Tiberius. Who is it? It's the Hadrian. Hadrian, I think, is the first one to really get a toehold in Britain and start Romanizing Britain. And then they leave, and I don't know how much like Latin blood mix. How much did the Romans really mix in with the indigenous or the population there, the Celtics, the Britons, which is a variation of a Greek word that means painted people. And then the Romans leave, and the Anglo-Saxons come in, and much of the legend of King Arthur is a Briton, not an Englishman, a Briton fighting against the Anglo-Saxons invasion. And the word English or in England is based off of, it's a deviation off of the word Anglo, like the Anglos and the Saxons, who all come from like the area that we now know as Denmark and northern Germany. Am I boring you to death? But within being English, there are Cornish people and there are Kentish people, and I'm sure there's other ones. And there are people from, of course, I think England was once a heptarchy, which there was like 7 kingdoms, probably even more than that, like Mercia and Northumbria and Wessex and Sussex, which is West Saxons, South Saxons, Essex, which is East Saxons, Is there a Norsix? I guess that's Northumbria. But I think Northumbria is mostly, if I got this right, the Northumbrians are mostly Anglos, and the southern part of England are Saxons, and there's some Jutes in there too. I guess they're all Jutes from Jim. So, my God, did I really go off the rails here? What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say if you're in England, buy my book. So anyway, yeah, the United Kingdom, England, Scotland. If you live in England, Scotland, or let's just say if you buy your stuff from Amazon UK, you can get the digital version of Mexico, My Love for 99 pence. How about that? I am so sorry for boring you guys to death. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to try to pull this up here. Oh, I know what yeah. Let's do this. Let's go to, oh no, I need to do it on, I should have prepared this. Let's go to Amazon. I'm going to pull this up here in a second for you guys to look at, but I want to make sure so you don't see all the embarrassing things that I buy for myself and or my girlfriend. Let's see. I guess I'll just type it in here. Let's see. Mexico, My Love. Oh, actually, I want to go. Yeah, let's go to Amazon UK. So that's Amazon.co.uk, and it's going to bitch at me because let's see, TX. Sorry, I got to prove I'm not a robot. It always gets kind of weirded out by me because let's see, change address, and I need a UK postal code, because what it's going to do is it's going to refuse to like sell me digital books because it wants me to buy it from Amazon.com because I'm an American. Let's see, UK postal code. So I should have done all this before. All right, I'm just going to pick a postal code in the UK. I just don't know enough. Okay, this looks fine. Let's do. All right. Okay, we'll pick one here. So hopefully that works. Little game I gotta play to get around some of these. All right. So I now live in SW1W0NY in the United Kingdom. Where that is, I don't have no idea. Oh, it's London. Okay. So this is me from my my flat, as they call them in British English, in London. So let's see, Mexico, My Love. There it is. Okay, great. And yes, only 99 pence. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and we're going to share this. I'm going to present arms, and we're going to do share screen, and we're going to do Mexico, My Love. Okay, bam. All right, this is great. You know what? In this way, I can't even see myself, so maybe I won't be so self-conscious. So this is the UK version of Amazon, and a lot of the big countries like the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, Australia, Canada, Mexico, they have their own version of Amazon, and I can't remember how many Amazon. There's like an Italian Amazon, French, but if you don't live in one of these big countries, then you end up buying from Amazon.com, which is the American version, and you're able to buy, digital books from the American version. So, like if you live in, I don't know, Zimbabwe. You would probably buy your stuff from Amazon.com. You might buy it from Amazon UK. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, here's my book. By the way, if you read my book, could you give me some stars? I'd love 5, but I'll take whatever you'll give me. And by the way, I'm not even supposed to ask you for 5. I can ask you for stars. I can ask you how many. And a review. But here is that book right here. And here's the description here. Mexico, My Love is a swashbuckling epic that will take you from the streets of Marseille through the deserts of Africa, across the pirate-infested seas, and ultimately to the madness of the Mexican-American War. Claudette is a French girl who dreams of true love adventure. Diego is a brash Mexican patriot trying to live up to his grandfather's sword-fighting legend. Has anybody read that and figured out who his grandfather is? Because there's a little game I'm playing there that no one has pointed out to me, and I'm wondering if people are catching it or they're just catching it and not saying anything. And here's my whole series. So here's my whole series and what it costs in the UK. It's 2.5 pounds. I don't know. Do people say that? 2.5 quid for the first one. Same for the second one. The third one's is £3 19 pence. But right now, through Thursday, you can get Mexico, My Love. And by the way, you don't have to read the other ones, and especially Mexico, My Love, because Mexico, My Love is a prequel. So you can just start with that if you like. 99 pence. And while we're here, I'd like to read you. I got a great review, and from someone in the United Kingdom, and David. I don't know if he'd appreciate me calling it. You know what? I won't. I know he's an author, so if you check out David's books, and give him some love and give him 5 stars, if you review his stuff and read his books. So, but he is an author himself, and he gave me 4 stars, which I'm very thankful for. And he says, I chose to read this because it seems to be a novel about the Mexican-American War, which I was interested to learn more about. However, the characters don't reach Mexico until 2/3 of the way through, which is fair. He's right. It is, though, an entertaining, fast-moving novel with a good storyline and a strong sense of place, France, North Africa, and ultimately Mexico, which I like. That's a really nice sentence. I like that a lot, because I really do, especially because none of those places. Well, I've been to Mexico, but I haven't been, and I've been to the airport in France, but I haven't been to Marseille. I mean, I'm basically describing places I've never been to. So I'm proud that I've been able to pull that off. I might actually pull this line and put it in the advertising. I didn't have a chance to do it because I'm running ads right now in the UK for the 99-cent Mexico, My Love, and I might put this line in here because, an entertaining, fast-moving novel with a good storyline and a strong sense of place. I think I might use that as a quote. So thank you, David, for that. He said that the author has a good imagination. Thank you very much. He even manages to include Alexander Dumas as one of the characters at the time he is planning his novel, The Count of Monte Cristo. So, that's absolutely right. And there's a reason for that. There's several reasons. But first of all, I set that up. So if you read, first of all, I use Alexander Dumas as like my spiritual ancestor. Like when I write, I try to write as much as I can. I use him as a model. Like he wrote not novels, he wrote serials that appeared in the newspaper, like the Musketeers or the Count of Monte Cristo. And then what they would do is that when they had enough of it, then they would compile those episodes and put it together and publish it as a book. So Dumas was always writing for newspapers episodes of his story, which later were compiled into novels in his lifetime. But they weren't written as novels first; they were written as serials. And I wanted to have that same kind of feel that he has, like the Musketeers have that kind of very romantic swashbuckling sense. And so I try to put that in all my writing, and I try to write so that each of my chapters is like an episode, and it's not always, but try to write somewhat of cliffhangers, some reason for you to keep reading to go on to the next chapter. That's kind of and the next book. So that's kind of my goal there with my writing. So And then if you've read, I'm going to come back here, see if I got any messages. If you've read Perils of Perryville, and Carl in the end is confronting his mother about his parentage, and he thinks he's black because a lot of people accuse him. I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but back in the 19th century, people are a little less friendly about mixed races. And because he's had people ask him if he is part black, he thinks that's what he is. And she first says, "No, don't be silly, although that wouldn't be a bad thing if you knew my sweet Alexander." And, if if you had learned your French, you could have read his three and then he cuts her off. He goes, "Mother, please tell me the truth." But it's a little thing and a suggestion that she knew Alexander Dumas at some point and maybe even had romantic interest in him. And so I knew I was going to pay that off. I knew it. It was part of the plan. And then when I wrote A Blood for Blood at Nashville, there's Francis and Elijah, and Francis is teaching Elijah how to read. And they go to a bookstore. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but Alexander Dumas was black, or at least he was a quarter black, and his father was half. And his father very much looked like a black man. Like if you looked at Thomas Alexander Dumas, you will see a black man there. Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Musketeers, is a guy that you might see the blackness in him, you might not, because he's only a quarter. But if you know he's black, then you definitely see it. See what I'm saying? But anyway, Elijah and Francis, who are both black, go to a bookstore, and Francis, who is educated, is trying to teach his friend how to read, and so he goes and buys him a copy of the either the Musketeers or the Count of Monte Cristo. I can't remember. And that's another nod to Alexander Dumas. So then when I wrote the third book, Mexico, My Love, I actually put him in it and gave him a speaking part. And he has several appearances in the book, in the early part of the book, and even takes Claudette and her girlfriend and their chaperone to the Chateau d'If, which is the famous prison island in which part of the Count of Monte Cristo takes place. And by the way, just so you know, I'm right now using my copy of the Count of Monte Cristo as part of my computer stand here. And this is unabridged. And like I said, this was not written as a novel. This was written as I need to go back and read this because I love this book. His Musketeer novels and his Count of Monte Cristo are fabulous. His other work is good. It's not as good. But like I'm reading The Prussian Terror, and I'm enjoying it because I love Alexander Dumas, and it's also the only other novel I know of that takes place in the Austro-Prussian War. So I think so I'm really enjoying hearing my master write about the same thing and comparing myself. Mostly, I just want to make sure I'm not getting things wrong, but comparing myself to him is a lot of fun. So let's get back to this. All right. The part dealing with the war is about the fighting around Los Angeles and the attack on Mexico City. It would have improved the book, in my opinion, if there had been more about the war. Okay, David, that's fair. It's also a love story, and a good one at that. Thank you very much, sir. You're making me blush. Although the descriptions of intimacy are rather repetitive. I think that's fair too. I will say, I'll come back here. I will say that I even told Laura, I said, I go because I have had several people, both male and female, give me compliments on my love scenes in my other books. And I realized that's something that people like. Particularly, I've had a lot of people remark to me about the love scene in Rampage on the River. and people said, "Wow, that was like I really enjoyed that. That was great," and that really I was like, "Okay, that's something people like." And so I'm always tasteful. I am always tasteful when I write sex scenes, but I also um I like to be, I don't know, well, just read them, you'll see what I'm saying. But when I wrote Mexico My Love, I'm like, okay, this is a romance novel. I want to have some steamy scenes in this. And so I even said to Laura, I go, I want to ride just below the level of excessive. And like I said, none of my descriptions, we're not naming body parts, nothing like that. But the suggestiveness is, um, like the very first love scene. I spent some time with it and kind of just let it go, man, and let it flow. And I'm very proud of it. And like I said, if you read it, you tell me, let me know if you think if it's tasteful. I think it is. And it's also inspired me. I guess this is no secret. I was kind of being coy about it. I am writing some erotica on the side, and that I may or may not publish. But if I publish it, it's going to be a under a pen name, and I probably won't be sharing. I'm just going to let that do its own thing, and I won't be talking about it or sharing it or promoting it, at least not as myself. And that's about it. Yeah, I'll end it there. Mostly, it's an exercise for me, especially in between writing the novels. Like when I'm working on editing and all that, before I start the next, just to keep my pen writing fluid by writing erotica, and we'll see how that goes. All right, getting myself in trouble here. All right, let's see. Okay, then the rest. Okay, the war itself was driven. Okay, then the rest. He makes good points here, and I don't entirely disagree with some of the things he said. In fact, a lot of things he is saying I do agree with, but he makes some kind of historical and political statements that may upset some people, and some of it's a little harsh, and some of it is like, yeah, okay, that's. So I'll leave that up to you. You don't have to go to the UK site to read this. Um, review. It's also on the American site. It just says reviews from other countries. And David himself is an author, and he's written American Civil War, which I'm very happy about. And I would like to promote him. And I didn't want to do it right away because I didn't want him to notice. I didn't want him to think that this was me trying to quid pro quo or anything like that. I just like other authors, and the guy took the time to give me a review. And I gotta say this about the British, and maybe particularly the English. They're an interesting people. And I will say that I'll start off by saying I'm an Anglophile. I'm in love with the accent. I love British culture. I just swoon and treat them like your average English person, like they're some kind of celebrity, just because I admire them. But there's some interesting things about them to take into account, especially as a writer and a book marketer. I will say this. Even though America, the United States, is a larger book reading market by far, we have just our population is so much larger than the United Kingdom. Our geography is so much larger. I think Great Britain is about the size of California, and that's including Wales. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like Wales, Scotland, and England, which makes up the island, which is called Great Britain, is about the size of California, or at least the West Coast. So they don't have the buying power that we have. So a lot of my British author friends, are spending all their money advertising in the U.S. Reading market, because there are more people, there are physically more readers in the United States. However, I would say that the British read more per capita, So the percentage of British people who read is much higher than that percentage of Americans who read. See what I'm saying? So I believe that the British are far more voracious readers on average. And because of that, and I also think that the British are far more interested in historical fiction than a lot of the American audiences. And that's not to say that there isn't a strong audience for it in the United States. But what I will say is that many times my royalties are, and I'm talking about American Civil War novels, that I make my royalties, not, I mean, overall, my royalties are higher in the United States for sure, but not by much. And some months I'm making more money in royalties in the United Kingdom than I do in the United States. So they're voracious readers, but I will also say that they're tougher critics. They're not shy about speaking their minds. And I really do like that, because you do get, I mean, of course I want everybody to give me a 5-star review and tell me how great I am. But you're going to get people being very candid and frank with you. And so, David, but they're also, the British have this natural politeness, kind of like the Southerners here in the United States too. So in a very nice way, I think David points out he's got some critiques, and they're valid ones. He thinks, I don't know if there are things that I would change, but I do understand what he's saying. Like, he wishes the book was more about the Mexican American War. I can understand that. I can see picking this up and wanting a book that's explicitly about that, and like, wait a minute, why are we in Northern Africa fighting with Algerian resistance fighters fighting the French invasion? This is not the book. And why are we in Marseille for the first third of the book? With French smugglers and a love triangle and things like that. So I get that. And then being a little heavy-handed with the intimacy, that was by design, and I can understand why. What he means by repetitive is that I wanted to establish that Diego and Claudette are in love with each other. And of course, for me as a man, love is multifaceted. I'm sorry, I'm looking for I lost I lost my slipper somewhere. But sex is a huge part of love to me. It's not the only part of love, but it's one of the pillars of love for sure. Of course, there's, listening to each other and understanding each other's feelings. And no, I'm just kidding. But, friendship, trust, reliability, those are all parts of love too. But I wanted to establish that because, and this is not a spoiler, it says it right, it's a tragic love story. And you also know, if you read the trilogy before, the trilogy, that Carl grows up without a father. So something happens to Diego that he's not in the picture when we get to the Civil War trilogy. So the thing that I've learned, if you've ever seen like drama, they always used one of the symbols for drama is the two masks, the laughing mask and the crying mask. And this is so true, because, and it's a very important lesson, I think, especially for you writers out there, and just in general for anybody. And I think this philosophy will be very familiar to you. You can't feel bad if you've never felt good. And you can't laugh if you've never cried. You can't love if you've never hated. You have to have this, what's the word to talk? I don't know. You have to have this binary system, or this continuum of laughter and crying, love and hate, happiness and sadness. See what I'm saying? Rage and benevolence. And you have to have this contrast, because otherwise one thing will be meaningless if you don't have the other, right? So I wanted Mexico, My Love to be a tragedy, and I wanted it to break your heart. I wanted at the end of the novel, I want your heart broken, but I can't break your heart unless I can show you the joy first. The book needed to be joyful and happy and fun and exciting. And because only by doing that first can I build the ultimate tragedy in the end. See what I'm saying? And it's more than just a couple fucking non-stopping throughout the book, but that's part of the joy. And so I wanted to establish that they have this real deep spiritual and physical love for each other, and that they struggle. There's conflict between them. Diego is, he's a man who's attracted to adventure and frankly violence. And this causes a struggle between them because Claudette's like, why can't we just be a family? Why can't you just be a simple farmer? Why does it always have to be fighting for honor and fighting for your country? Why can't you just live with me and our son Carlos, because he's originally Carlos, instead of feeling this need of sacrificing yourself, and ultimately she loses that debate. But I had to make it so that to really establish that here are people that love each other, and have this deep, profound, and spiritual and physical attraction to each other. So there you have it. All right. So what happens next? Let's see if I can pull things up. Okay, we stopped that. We're going to go present. Can I do slides? You have no slides. No, you have no slides. Let's see if I can pull something up. Slides. Okay, let's see if I can upload a slide. Otherwise, I know a way around this. Okay, let's see here. Let's do desktop. Okay, I know an easier way. I got to figure this out, and I'm not going to do it live. Let's do this. Let's go. We'll do screen share. I'll go back to this here. Open that up. And I want to go to, this might be dangerous, but because who knows what pops up when I go to Facebook. And I'm just going to let it fly. Actually, I'll do this. I'm going to stop sharing. So that, okay, now I'm going to go to Facebook. And of course, I would have been all right. And I'm going to go to my page, and everything's being super slow, probably because I am live streaming right now. And let that load. And okay, here we go. Now we can share this. Oh, we got a viewer. Okay, let's see here. Share screen, and we're gonna do this. Okay. So here is what's going on. So there's my screen, and the coming soon is the Prussian Prince, which I am in the midst of editing at the moment. Let's see if I can pull up a good picture of it. There's that review. You get a good review. Go ahead and clip it. I would not share the person's name, and because unless they give you permission, because they might, not be expecting to be part of your marketing. Let's see here. Maybe, God, there's no easy way of doing this. I know this is what we'll do. I got this solution right here. Hang with me, people. I'll pull this up. There we go. How about that? All right, so you can see the Prussian Prince. All right, so here's where we are right now. I finished writing it just before Thanksgiving, and started editing it. And I'll talk about that process in a second, because I've changed some of the ways that I do this now. But I am doing my own editing, and it's going slow because I'm being very meticulous about it. There's a lot, it's not just correcting typos and misspellings, but it's also and fixing clunky sentences and things like that. But it's also like uh, making sure the continuity is there, making sure like establishing things earlier, so or things that I didn't explain very well, that kind of stuff. I am hoping to have that done by Christmas, I guess is, and then uh, I will hand it off to Laura, and then she'll take a red pen to it, and then to my mother, and then we're going to publish. The plan is right now is that I'm going to launch the pre-sale or the pre-order the day after Christmas. So remember what we talked about earlier about the Christmas buying season is not a good season to promote a new book, but I think immediately after is. And so I'm hoping to outdo the pre-order I did last time. And so what I'm going to do, I think the book is going to go for $4.99. It'll eventually come down in price after a few years, but the new book is always going to be $4.99 or whatever the reasonable higher amount is. And then as books make their way into the back catalog, we'll drop the price, but the price won't drop for at least a year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer it. Unfortunately, we can only do this with the digital version. We're going to offer the digital version for 99 cents in the United States and 99 pence in the UK, and whatever that translates to in all the other places. And that is to entice you to, hey, if you do a pre-order, you can get this for 1/5 of the price it's going to be once it comes out. So I think that's a pretty good deal. 80% off if you say yes. Why do I do that? Because the money right now, the money isn't like so great that I'm really missing out on things. It's mostly to build up the book's ranking and the sales ranking, because the higher it is, the more Amazon's going to show it to people. So that if I get a lot of pre-orders, then it'll help it. It'll help it in its ranking, so that when it comes out, Amazon will show it to more people. That's basically what we're trying to do. And also, hopefully, that a lot of those pre-orders people will give me, lots of stars, 5 stars maybe, and give me a nice review, like David's review there, and that helps. Just so you know, I cannot stress this enough, not just for me, but for any of your favorite authors out there. If you read their books, try to give them some stars on Amazon and Goodreads or wherever else you can, and give them a review. A review doesn't have to be as detailed as David's. It can just be a good line, a couple lines like, hey, this is a great book. I really enjoyed it. That's it. 5 stars, man, or whatever you think is appropriate. So we'll probably, when we launch it, I'll probably, I might buy some Facebook ads. I might try to get it. I thought maybe I might look into finding, I'm mostly independent, but seeing if there's a German publisher who would like to do the translation and make it for the German market. Maybe I'm dreaming. I don't know, but it seems like it might be a good time to start looking at that. And then it's going to come out on my birthday, and which is February 4th. And the reason why is now Amazon makes it so that you can not only launch your digital version on a set day, but the print versions as well. And so I feel like on my birthday is like the most popular day for me of the year, because everybody wishes me well. I get maybe out of the 3,000 followers, I probably get like 300 happy birthdays, and I open up my page so people can write on it. And I'm not going to be like, oh, thank you, buy my book, but I feel like having all those eyes on me might make it show, it'll help the algorithm, because everybody's interacting with me on Facebook. So when I post things, okay, I got a new book out, they may see that. So I figure, why not? Why not use that date as a launch date? I think it's also the day that I officially have for my publication date from The Perils of Perryville, my second book. But that I was going to say, but I feel like technically it came out a day or two before or something like that. But now I can actually make it land on my birthday. So that's what we're going to do. So what is the editing process of my book? So everybody's got a different system. And, some people write their entire book before they go back and read anything. I don't understand how anybody does that. So here is my method, as simply as I can put it. When I sit down and write, after the first writing session, when I come back and I sit down and write some more in my book, the first thing I do is I go back and I read everything I wrote the last session. And the reason why I do that is so that I can catch myself up, to remind myself what I was doing, and get the tone and the voice back into my head, so that when I continue from that point, it flows better. But it's also kind of like the first pass of editing, because I'm not really working on editing, but I'll fix anything that sounds wrong or is incorrect, or if I omit a word or things like that. So that's the first one. The next thing I do is that every time I finish a chapter, I go back and I put it through this process. And we'll get to that because I'm going to jump ahead. And so I do that chapter by chapter. I put it through its processes. And then, we'll get to that in a second. And then once I'm done with that, I copy and paste it, and I sent a copy of it to Laura in her email, so that if anything happens, we can at least pull it out of her email so I don't lose anything. Because I lost a good part of a novel that I was writing in the 90s because of a crashed hard drive. And then I also take that chapter and I add it to the main document. So the way I do it is I have a master document, and then each chapter is a separate document that I write within that separate document, because it's easier to navigate. Instead of something that's hundreds of pages long, it's only a few pages long. So you see what I'm saying? So the scroll bar isn't like this tiny little dot that makes it go like hurricane fast up or down. So once I'm done with the book and I've written everything, I've written the foreword, I've written the historical note, the table of contents is built, other works by Cody C. Engdahl, all that stuff is done and put together, then starts my editing process. And what I do is I go section by section. Well, first of all, I run the whole entire document through, what do you call it? No, actually, sorry, let's strike that. This is how because I've changed the way I do this. So now my new method of editing is I first read through the entire book casually. I might make some corrections if I see mistakes, but I'm not really looking that hard for mistakes. I'm not looking that hard for typos or things like that. And I'm just reading it to myself, because I want to see if the book flows, if it's missing something. I'm looking at structure. I'm looking at character development. I'm looking at consistency, those kinds of things. And so I read the whole book through once, making any kind of corrections I need to make along the way. Then the serious work happens. So then I go and I do spell check through the whole thing. And then I go chapter by chapter. So I'll take a chapter and I'll read the whole thing. I'll spell check it. And then I will read the whole thing out loud. And it's very important you read it out loud, because you don't really realize how it really sounds and how the sentence flows until you read it out loud. And you might find, oh, that sentence is really clunky, or, oh, I used that word too many times in this paragraph. And these things you might not catch if you're reading it to yourself. But if you read it out loud, you'll do that. Then what I do, this is a new thing, is I will, I have a voiceover function on my word processor. I don't know if it's my word processor or if it's just on my Mac, but I can put the cursor on something and turn on the voiceover, and then a robotic voice, Siri, will actually read it for me. So then I will let Siri read the chapter to me. And a lot of times my eyes will fix mistakes. I won't see the mistake consciously, because subconsciously I'm fixing it. And listening to her read it out loud really allows me to hear, oh, I omitted a word here, or oh, I misspelled that word and she's pronouncing it weird. You really catch a lot of mistakes that way, and that has really helped me. And then once I do that, then I copy the entire chapter and I paste it into Grammarly. And then I go through all Grammarly's. The free version will give you all just the mistakes. And then once I fix all those, I'll go back through, and it won't give you like style or subtle things that could be improved. It'll just underline it, and then you got to figure out what it's talking about. And if you pay for it, it'll tell you everything. And I'll go through that, and the things that I can deduce, and not everything I agree with, I'll make those changes. And then once I do that, then I will. I'm done with that chapter, and then I go on to the next one. So that's basically what my process is. And then, and I think I've done 9 chapters out of 24 so far. Unfortunately, actually, fortunately, see Siri's listening to me. I've been working a lot for MGR, so I've been managing to do basically a chapter a day because of work. But I'm hoping, especially Christmas week, to have the time to really dig in there and get a lot of this work done. I shouldn't say this, but we're an hour and 10 minutes in this, so only very dedicated people hear this. I'm going to Huntsville tomorrow. I'll be in Huntsville all next week, coming home on Friday, working for MGR. And then I'll be home for the Christmas week, and then I'm going back to Huntsville the first week, right after New Year's Day. And then I will, after that, be once I finish Huntsville, I'm done with MGR. I'm leaving them, and they're a good company. They're very kind to me, but the pay isn't worth spending every single week of my life living in a hotel room, in a dingy hotel room somewhere far from home. And the biggest thing is that I was put in positions where I would have to say no to things like book talks and fiddle gigs. And that's not what I have a side job for. It's to supplement, not to supplant. So the great news is, I told myself I'm not going to worry about finding another job till after I leave this one, because I got too much on my plate. I'll have plenty of time to look. But Headway, which is a company I've worked for before, I do a lot of studies, like social studies and educational studies. They're temporary, but they pay well, and they're very flexible. They're recruiting me for another study that should fill the gap there. So it looks like I'm going to just walk out of this job, have some time to get caught up with, getting this book published and out, going to see my father in Florida, and then starting training in February for the new job, and which will take me to Washington, D.C. for like a week for training, and then things will get kind of normal. So that's a godsend. It's just very convenient to not have to go look for a job, and unfortunately, I don't mind it at all, actually, but I don't make quite enough yet off of playing the fiddle and writing books. I make some, but not quite enough to completely not do anything else. So that's kind of what I do to pay the bills and to allow myself to pursue this endeavor, which, by the way, if you like my writing, I'm never going to stop until I'm incapacitated or I'm dead. So I'll always be around. So anyway, we'll wrap this up. Please give me a like on this, thumbs up, leave me a comment. I will reply to it. And unless you're being mean to me, and subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't commit you to anything. And if you've not just me, if you've read anybody's books and you like them, give them a positive review. We authors live and die by that. Well, his name is on there, but give David, the guy who reviewed my book, check out his book, see if you might like them. He looks like a good guy. He probably writes interesting English guy writing American Civil War. I think that's great because I'm writing European history right now. So anyway, I love you guys. Have a great holiday. I will probably talk to you guys Christmas Eve. I haven't really I'm not committing to anything, but there's a good chance. Let me know if you like this time. Is this a better time? If you're an author, I'd like to bring you on, talk about your book maybe. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Love you. And